It is week 6. We are powering through. This week I'm going to start a unit on embroidery. So we've got a needlepoint embroidery unit, and that's going to last for 2 sessions. So this week and next week, that's what we'll be doing. And I'm going to show you some stitches, and we're going to go through some of the basic stuff. I know a lot of you already know quite a bit about embroidery and needlepoint needle crafts. But if you don't, this is a great couple of introductory things to learn. And you can always do them. You don't have to do them real small. I know they're hard to see sometimes when they're little, but you can do them nice and big on your knit pillows or knit scarves. Crochet too. So it's something new to learn, something different than the normal crochet and knit stuff. Okay, so I know my table looks kind of like a mess, but I have some things to show you before I start working on needlepoint needlepoint embroidery. So there are a couple things to go over. Let me just get rid of these. So when you first start out with needlepoint or embroidery, you need a couple of things. You need something to, you need fabric. So essentially you can work on anything. There are a couple different things that are a little more made just for needlepoint and crochet, and I have this needlepoint I've been working on, and unfortunately it got stained. Coffee fell on it, so I'm not going to be using the rest of that. I might cut this off and just use this part of what I was working on. But this is a kit you can get, and this is a type of fabric that is used just for cross stitch. So see, cross stitch employs, if you've never ever done this before, a lot of you have, but cross stitch employs stitches that go this way, so that's a half, and this is a cross stitch. They're little X's. And depending on the fabric you can get, the weave of this cross stitch fabric has the little holes ready for you, so it's uniform. So when you make this, you're not going to have an X that's like this large and then an X that's this tiny. All of them are going to be about the same size. So a fabric like this employs those little grid-like squares to employs these little grid-like squares so you can make sure you have a uniform look every time you're making this. So all this is a bunch of either cross stitches or half cross stitches, so just like the one line, and that's all that it is that employs it. Some cross stitch fabrics will even have like a little bit of a picture printed on it for you, so you have help, but mine was completely blank when I got it. So this was several months of work for me, so it took a while, but I was really kind of happy with it. Unfortunately, it got a little ruined, but that's okay. You can see up here I have a tapestry needle. This one's a little bit sharp for this. You need a needle that has a large eye, and the reason for that is when you work with this kind of thing, you want to have a bigger eye for what you're working on, because you don't know how thick your thread's going to be. So this one was only 2 threads thick, but this one was like 3 or 4. So there's a difference, and it gives a different feeling. So that blue is much more vibrant than this black, or actually I think it's even an olive. So very dark olive color. So that's just one of the examples. I wish I had another one to show you that wasn't ruined, but at the end, what you would end up doing is you'd end up writing, this had words on the sign. So you'd make lines on it, and that's kind of like an embroidery technique too. And then I think there were French knots in the flower bush as well. So it's a pretty one. Let's see. So that's one fabric you can use. Another fabric you can use is something like this. So this says dinner napkins. And you can get this at Joann's. I got this at Joann's yesterday. And what it is it's just a plain white fabric. Let's open this up. Sometimes these have just like a little, maybe I'll have to cut it. Alright, I'll be right back with scissors. Okay, I brought back scissors, so I'm gonna open these. And this is what I'm going to work on today. I kind of explained it to you a little bit with cross stitch. So you really only use that fabric if you're doing cross stitch. So say you're going to do embroidery. You probably want a fabric more like this with a tighter weave. So basically any fabric, really. You can embroider on anything. This is considered a dinner napkin. So it's a light fabric. It's very nice, very kind of cotton. Looks like you can wash it and iron it and dry it, so that's nice. We should just have a unit on how to read these symbols, because this means that you can wash it in 30 degrees Celsius water, so warm, and then this means don't dry clean it. And that means iron, but iron at a setting of, see the two dots? I think it's iron at a setting that's high, but not too hot. And then this is, you can tumble dry it. So I'm going to work on this napkin. Here, so that's one of the things you can do. And this napkin set from Joann's cost me $10. So that's that. The fabric that I showed you before, if you get it from Joann's or Michael's, it'll cost you roughly the same, the cross stitch fabric. I think sometimes it's called monk cloth, or what is it? Maybe like cross stitch canvas. I don't know. So let me show you. There are two different kinds of. Let me move this out of the way. There are two different kinds of stretcher bars, or stretchers. So you can get, and I know these are roughly the same, but they come in a bunch of different sizes. So you can get hoops. Hoops are very nice. This one's wood. You don't have to use a wooden hoop. You can use a plastic one. They have them at Joann's and Michael's. Where else? Gotta put the cap back on. They have them at Joann's and Michael's. They are relatively cheap. $5 maybe. But that's pretty much. So you release this, and then you put this inside like this. So if you've never ever done this before, this is how you do it. Usually people don't embroider the whole napkin. They embroider a piece. So let me just stick that. So the bottom goes in like this. Make sure you don't have a wrinkle like I do right there. So let's make sure it's straight going in. If you have wrinkles, it might show up later in what you're working on. All right, look at that. And then you just tighten it so you can get your tension. I have to bring the rubber down to keep the tension good. All right, so look at that. Oh, that's really close, but that's pretty good. You can have it even tighter. Just don't break your hoop. There we go. Looks good. If I pull on it, it's tight. There's a little bit of a sound when you hit it. Okay, so that's a wooden hoop. I'm missing one of the little brackets, or, well, the things that hold it in place, but I think this is a cheaper option, maybe. I don't know if it's really cheaper. I think I got this for $15 or 10 to 15. And it's a plastic, I don't know, it's like a PVC pipe, but you can buy this as a set. They have these out there. You might have to get it online. I couldn't find them at Joann's or Michael's, but they're like available. They're available on Amazon or Needlepoint website resources. So it's roughly the same. You take these off, and it operates pretty much just like the hoop. I'll get another napkin out. Okay, one more napkin. Napkins everywhere. So if I had all four, the tension would be excellent, but I don't. I just have the three. So what you do is you put the napkin over top, or cloth, and then you kind of hold it taut, and you put one of these on and kind of hold it like that, and then you put the opposite one on like that. So then you would tighten it like that, and that would have that tension. Then you would go to the other side and you put this one on, and you'd put the other one over there and tighten that too. So then instead of the circular area, you have a square. I'm not going to use this one today. I'm going to use the hoop. So today we will go over some stitches, but I'm not done showing you all the materials. I know this is kind of pedantic, and a lot of you know all this stuff already, so I'm sorry. But maybe just fast forward to a different part of the video. Somebody maybe who has never done this before is learning something new. So here are a couple different needles. When I embroider, I like to use these crewel needles. They are a little bit, they can be kind of dull on the end, but they can be sharper too. And I like the sharper needles for if I'm going through fine fabric like this. Especially if you're going through something like denim, you'll want something sharp and heavy duty. So these are kind of sharp, and they're also pretty heavy duty. Crewel needles also usually have quite a bit of a eye to them. The eye of the needle lets in a lot of fabric. If you need something that lets in a lot of thread. If you need something that lets in a lot of thread, you might use a tapestry needle. So a tapestry needle, in general, see how dull these are? They're not going to go through normal fabric. They're going to go through that canvas fabric, like what I showed you before. The grid. It's really just made for that. This is not going to go through something normal like a cotton. It'll go through the hole. Here are some embroidery needles. All of these are at Michael's and Joann's, and these are only like maybe 50 cents to $1. I think they're closer to $1 or $2 actually. So, and here's some embroidery needles specific for embroidery. See how the eye is rather large, but not super large. So sewing needles are going to be a lot smaller. You don't want that. You want something that allows you that space for if you need a whole bunch of thread to go through. Like, let's see. Here's an example of thread. You can get these Joann's Michaels online, pretty much anywhere they sell embroidery stuff. So this is called DMC. It's a thread. It comes like this. It's 100% cotton. It'll come, this is just one long thread. So you have to cut off the length of thread that you want. So when you are working, you only want so much. Let's see, it even says that you can, how to wash and dry it. So it says don't put it in the dryer. All right. Tells you the lot number. It's made in France. Okay. A bunch of different threads like this too. Same idea. They come, you can get them from Michaels. They come in like several different colors. I think they're like $1. All right. So when you make these, you have to cut your own length. So let's say I'm going to, I think I'm done with materials now. So let's say I want 2 thick, and I'm going to need maybe like a foot, maybe a little more. Maybe I'll go, you really don't want to cut off more more thread than you need to. I'm going to take this off. Sometimes you can do it without taking it off, but other times you cannot. So I'm cutting it. I only want this much right now. Okay. I've got a whole bag of these too. So lots of different colors. This one was like that, but it's not. Sometimes if you want to keep them all kind of together and not in a confusing jumble, you would put them in plastic baggies. All right. So, okay, I want 2 thick. I don't want 6 thick. So these come in strands of 6. So each thread, one of these silk threads, well, they're cotton, sorry. One of these cotton threads is 6 strands long. Careful not to get your hair caught up in them too, because it causes knots. So when you split, see all these little guys? They're so small. I mean, it's hard. So you want to grab 2. And when you're doing it, it's always good to have somebody hold the other end. It depends on how long your end is going to be. So ideally when you're working with embroidery thread, you only want so much, just enough to get you through. I know I'm telling you guys a whole bunch about materials and stuff. I promise you when we get to the point where we're actually working, it's going to look good. Okay, usually if it's long too, you'll have somebody else hold the other end while you're working on it. So when you pull, it doesn't get all tangled. All right, so now here's my one with the 4, and here's it with the 2. Some people are really good at this. When they start, they can start with a knot. When you're really good, you don't need a knot. You can just tuck your work in behind as you're working. But if you're just now starting out, and I'm assuming a lot of people are, but I know a lot of you are not new to this at all. You're experts at this, and you're probably better at this than me. When you're new, go ahead and make a knot. So I'm going to just show you how to make a square knot really fast. So you take the 2 ends, and you want to go one end, the little end, and you want to take it and go through and behind. Okay, now this one, we're going to cross this one over, the long one, and we'll take the little end and go through and in front. It's important to alternate the direction of your knot, because if you keep doing it the same way, you're not going to get anything for this to sit on. Okay, so I'm going to stop just for a sec so we can start on our embroidery stitches. Okay, so we're going to start our first stitch, and we had just done a square knot here. You can see my band-aid. I burned myself earlier this week. I made my knot. Remember, the square knot has to be, you do it twice and you alternate the direction. If you didn't see it, just go back a little bit. I explained how to do it. So I'm going to thread this. And when you thread, some needles have this, some don't. They have an opening at the top. I don't think this one does. Yeah. So there's some tricks where you can like just kind of put the thread in your hand and roll the needle around, but I can't. I always have trouble with this one. Where you can get it through. I like to just cut the edge. I'm using an embroidery needle, by the way. Wow, my scissors are not sharp. Embroidery scissors are kind of like the best scissors to use for this. So if you need help, you can, sometimes licking it makes the strings go down. So that helps. Okay, so there, it's gone through. So you want to generally have not a whole bunch of room between the knot and the string. So halfway is pretty good. Down this, maybe even more closer to 3/4 of the way. Just remember to always adjust your length by pulling on the needle. All right, so let's do the first one. This is just a basic stitch, so it's like a straight stitch where you're going through. I'm going to go through the back first. Like this. And I'm just going to go straight through. So there are a bunch of different ways you could do this. This is just a basic straight stitch. So there you go. I'm going to skip this and try to kind of hit a point where it's the same. I know it's really hard to see, equidistantly the same. And I'm not going backwards yet. I'm just going forwards. And I'm going to do this way. So you can do it like this, where you just kind of pick it up. And it should be roughly the same on the other side when I turn it. Even though with embroidery, there's definitely a front side and a back side. So it's just, it takes, oh, here we go. Perfect. Quite often you run into this problem in embroidery or cross stitch. This is when you have too much length. If it's loose or the knot's loose, you can just pull it a little bit and it comes out like that. But sometimes you have to loosen the knot. So I might show you later if I come across it. So you're just very easily and simply moving across here. And I think my stitches are even getting a little big. But this is like the basic stitch. If you hand sew too, this is pretty much how you hand sew as well. But this gives a very nice look to something. If you wanted something very simple looking, you've got a line here, and on the other side, exactly the same. So as long as you keep it straight, you're doing good. Let's do one more, and then I'll show you how to do a cross stitch. Okay, I kind of went up. That's okay. So when you work cross stitch, I'm just going to come down here. You want to work upper right to lower lower left. So you're working in an X. You can do cross stitch one of several ways, especially when you're working on a cross stitch pattern like what I was working with. Here's this again. This issue. So I go through the loops with my needle and kind of pull on it. Sometimes that helps. And then you just, there, it's gone. Okay. So you want to work from the upper right hand corner down to the upper left hand corner. And sometimes when people work cross stitch, they'll work in the diagonal this way and come back, which is perfectly fine if you're working with a cross stitch fabric. But if you're working on a napkin like mine, I would recommend, sorry, put this in the middle. I would recommend working on your X's one at a time. So even if you're slow and you know what you're doing, you've done this a lot before, it still has a tendency, especially if you're having trouble seeing it, to kind of be difficult. So I'm going to go back and almost go into this right here. So you want to cross it, and you want to be consistent when you're working with it. So see how my X is not 100% perfect. I'm going down to the bottom and crossing it here. So this is completely fine to do it this way, where you do it one way and then do it the other way. But it's kind of nice to do it all at once. So I'll show you how. Come down here. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to cross it. I did it pretty even actually. It looks pretty good. So I'm going to cross it down here. It always helps to do it on a hoop. If you do it by hand without the tension of the hoop, it becomes really hard to get anything done. So there we go. Oh, my X could look a lot better, I think. That's okay. I'm going to. So it really just depends. Sometimes for me it helps to have kind of one thing dictate how the rest are going to look. I'm getting sloppy. Yeah, it's looking okay. Could look better, huh? Okay. Usually when you travel across, see how I'm always going up into the upper right hand corner and then down to the lower left, and then I go to the upper left and go down. You can do it the way I'm doing it, or you can do it like this. Watch. Where you poke it in and then you go in this way. Here we go. Go in this way, and then we want to figure out where we're coming out. So I'm going to come like this. Where is my needle? Not there. Maybe closer to there? Yeah? Okay. So you can do it that way, where you bring it up like that. if you like that better. And then down like that. That looks really nice. Okay. Next I'm going to show you the satin stitch. So satin stitch is used for normal embroidery. Here, let me show you. So that's kind of what the back of that looks like. Doesn't look the same as the front like this one did. Let's go over here. Okay. Satin stitch is where you go the same direction and you want to have the same look to it as you go. Now it's easier for me to go left to right because I'm right-handed. So I'm gonna travel this way instead of that way. So when you do the satin stitch, you want to kind of be as close as possible. This might take some practice. And just keep going right next to the other stitch. And you know, I didn't do this, but it's perfectly fine to take a pencil or even like a fabric marker and put it there with this. If you are working on like embroidering a flower or something, probably getting smaller as I go. If you're working on embroidering a flower, you wouldn't do a whole bunch of different directions for the petal. You'd want to kind of work in one direction. However, some people kind of like the stylistic choice of embroidering flowers with several different directions to kind of emphasize the movement of flower petals. So that's a very good way to kind of show how that would work. I mean, see, I'm getting bigger over time. I'm not really working in a square format. I'm working kind of more on something like this. So say I'm working on a flower petal or something different. See how just like the different height, but working in the same area gives it that feeling. And you just want to make sure you're next to it. So see, I'll show you. Oop, that one overlapped. So I don't like that. Maybe I'd take that out. If you want to take that out, take the needle out and we'll get rid of that. So we'll go back. Where was that last one? I think that was it, huh? I'm trying to pick it up. That's one. Okay. There we go. I didn't like that one. Give a little tug. Did. So that's a good example of how you kind of get rid of something if you don't like it. Okay, so here I'll show you what happens when you don't have it right next to each other. It kind of ruins the effect. So let's finish this one right there, and then we'll do our next one. So this one kind of fell on top of the other one again, but that's okay. So say I'm continuing, and see how that's not super close, but I come in real close right here. It's gonna look weird. There. It also changes my direction a little bit. It doesn't look right, huh? So this is one of those stitches where you want to make sure that you're going the same direction. Maybe like this is an instance where I would go over top of that stitch and try to kind of save that, but I would just take it out is what I would do. See? It doesn't really ruin it. It's just one of those things. Okay. So I think we've come to a point in today's video where we have definitely finished for time. So let's I'll show you how to do a knot this, and then we will have to finish our embroidery unit next time. But we got a couple of things done. We learned cross stitch, we learned straight stitch, and then we learned a satin stitch, or how to embroider. So these are the basic stitches you would need to know how to do it. So what I like to do when I finish is I like to come underneath the work I'm working on. So see how I'm kind of going through these strings. I'm not going through this side. And this would take a lot of practice. We're going underneath, pull it through, and now I'm going to kind of come in like this, much like how you make a French knot, which I'll show you next time, and pull. And then you can't really change directions with this. I like to do it twice. There you go. All right, so just snip that off, and you have done these stitches. Okay, so today was the first of our the first week of our unit of embroidery and needlepoint. I hope you guys liked it. I know for some of you it's definitely super basic, and if it is, just, you know, look at it as a review or just move on to the next week. But for some of you who've never done this before, who've been intimidated to do anything like this, look at it like this. It's not really as hard as you think, and it's all just practice. And I know I might have made it look really easy, but it really is that easy, and it just takes practice. Repeat just twice, but it just takes practice, and you can do it. I can do it. So I look forward to seeing you work on these if you want to work on these next. Just some more options. All right. See you next week. Thanks.